Hello, everyone,
Woo!
and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to be talking with my friend Kristiaan Hilger about escaping the life of a corporate slave. We want to know how it happened, Kristiaan. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Becky. So nice to meet you again.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you again. We met on the Nomad cruise. I've had actually a couple of interviews with fellow Nomad cruisers, so great to have another person. But Kristiaan, I really want to hear about this whole story of how you escaped because so many people are corporate slaves maybe right now and they're thinking of escaping. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you started out in the corporate life?
Absolutely. Well, I can answer the question short or long. Where should I begin? At what
You
point in my
tell
life?
me.
Actually, it's cool. I cut my microphone like this. This is really cool. Look at this. Hello, hello, Becky. Do you hear me now? All right. So I would say my whole journey was basically an academic career. So I come from a family of academics. So my father was a vice principal at my high school. My uncle is a priest in the Catholic Church and has a PhD in theology. So for us, academic achievements were always really, really highly appreciated, right? So of course, I was one of the best guys in school, and then I went to private business school and did internships everywhere and so on. And my resume was like polished and looked really awesome. So of course, I would get a job at one of the top companies, right? So in the end, I either want to be consultant at McKinsey or Boston Consulting. Actually, they both invited me. I skipped the interviews and never went there actually. So in the end, I accepted a job in Switzerland. I had a big corporate called ABB. So they have 120,000 employees. I was selected for their training programs, management training program. We were five people out of, I think, over 1,000 applicants. So I was like in this top-notch elite management program, and it was an amazing time actually. So they were carrying us on hands, as you would say in Germany. Like they were basically pampering us. We had four assignments: two in Switzerland, one in India for half a year in Bangalore, one in the US. I was in St. Louis, Missouri, and then I would come back to Switzerland. So the whole program was really amazing. Unfortunately, after that program, I realized that corporate life can also be very different. So I actually ended up in a burnout in a job in Switzerland. That was in 2017. And I thought to myself, okay, how is it possible that these people, these nomads, are somewhere in the world doing whatever, working at the beach in the most beautiful destinations, like in Bali and in Brazil and somewhere in the Philippines. And I'm here stuck in my corporate job in Switzerland, making a lot of money, obviously, six-figure income. But I wasn't happy and I was actually burned out. I was dreaming about issues in the production. I was working in supply chain management, so I was responsible for a factory. And whenever there was an issue with the supply chain, they would come to my desk and I would have to save the world. So it was a very operational job, very different from what was promised to me. It was supposed to be like a strategic role, what I was actually trained for, right? Management trainee, so should be doing strategic stuff. In the end, it was very operational. And I was really in operational hell. So, and already at the time, I think maybe 6 months before, 9 months before, I came across this book, Richard Poor Dad, and then I also read The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and this whole thing started like kicking off these thoughts processes in my head, like being a nomad, leaving corporate, leaving this, let's say, like this path of having a crazy career in corporate and becoming the CEO of a big corporation one day, and being a millionaire, whatever, with a big mansion and two yachts. In the end, I thought, okay, how can I achieve this lifestyle of being a nomad? And actually, this desire was growing more and more inside of me. So I was basically, when I was in this Burns setup, I was going to work in the morning with my bike, and I was listening to this podcast by this German podcaster called Markus Meurer. He had like the DNX podcast, but DNX was like the biggest normal conference in Germany. And this was actually the highlight of my day. Like it was so inspirational to always like listen to what he was doing. He was interviewing nomads, actually just like you're doing, Becky. And I thought like, okay, how do these people do it, And in the end, unfortunately, that was the highlight of my day. So I listened to the podcast, and I went into the office, and the whole shit show was starting to unfold. And then one day, so I already knew because I read Richard Poor Dad that I wanted to become an entrepreneur somehow, do something. But at the same time, I had no energy left because I was really burnt out. And when you come home from work at like 6, 7, 8, 9 after your office day, you're totally drained. So I really hadn't have the power actually to start my own thing. Although actually I was tempering. I was no, not tempering. How do you call that? Um, trying it out. How do you say that in English? I don't know the word. Anyway, so I was trying to set up my own thing, and so I started a company in Bulgaria, and then afterwards I wanted to Amazon FBA. Actually, I never did that for different reasons. But anyway, so then I went to Thailand to a co-working space in Koh Lanta. And at this co-working space, this was like in November 2017, like the mood was so positive, like totally in contrast to the people at my corporation at the time. Everybody was super negative, like only finger pointing. Oh yeah, the word was dabbling. So I was dabbling with doing my own thing. So anyway, it was four weeks in Thailand. I didn't take any vacation before because I really had this feeling, if I leave this setup here, this company now, and go on vacation, like everything falls apart. So I had this feeling like of extreme high responsibility because I am actually a responsible guy. So I take ownership for my tasks, and then actually I just thought, okay, I have to take some time off now, and then I left, and I was in Thailand, and the time at the co-working space was awesome. Like the people were so nice and the mood was so amazing. Everybody was friendly and somehow liked what they did, seemingly. And then I was sitting at the beach and looking at the ocean, and I thought, okay, either I go back to Switzerland now in 2 weeks in December and quit this fucking job, or I'll go to a mental institution and go fucking crazy. I hope I'm allowed to swear in your podcast.
You are allowed to swear, yes. I mean, this is like an intense moment in your life, right? Like, wow.
Yeah, and then I went back to Switzerland, and 2 weeks later I handed my resignation, and it was the best moment of my life. Really, like this moment of handing in the resignation and being out of this misery. Just I knew, okay, this is gonna end now. And that was just like such a powerful feeling because I had spoken up before. So I gave them a warning like in August already. I talked to my boss, I talked to my boss's boss, and that guy, actually the head of our department, he was like total career aspiring guy. Just like following orders and whatever and doing whatever his boss wanted him to do. And I had told him, like, so we all trade time for money, and I can trade my time somewhere else much better, than here. And he said, you know what, Kristiaan? So here with us in this department for half a year now, like wait, like in 2 years you're gonna be the best strategic buyer here of our whole department, and we're gonna make you like the top manager. So they basically like hanging dangling the carrot in front of your head, your nose, and making you promise all these things, and in the end they are all false promises, unfortunately. So yeah. And yeah, basically I told him either you give me a real job, like what I was trained for, this is a strategic role, or I'm out. And then 4 months later, I did that. I pulled it off. It was awesome.
Walk
And then I have
out.
many cool things unfolded.
Did you walk out or did you give like a 2 week notice?
No. So basically in Switzerland, you have a 3 month notice period. It can be shorter, but normally it's 2 to 3 months. So
Wow.
so I was still there until March 2018. But the funny thing actually happened. So actually my boss wasn't the problem. My boss actually was a really cool guy. So actually he told me, Kristiaan, you're doing this crypto thing now and so on. Like, don't you need some more cash flow at the moment for the time being? And you know what? Why don't you just like create your own job and you stay a little bit longer? And then in the end, actually, he gave me like a totally new role. Like I think it was like a supply chain project manager or something cool. And in the end, I only like 2018 was actually the best year when I was employed. I was only doing cool stuff like strategic projects, like negotiating about cranes and self-driving vehicles for the production and so on, but nothing that was like time critical, there where you would have sleepless nights over like missing parts in production that were needed tomorrow or the day after. So 2018 was an amazing year. So I was actually dabbling with crypto a lot and getting into this whole subject very, very deeply. At the same time, I was maybe working 20%, although I was being paid full time. Okay, maybe that was like um, let's say like equaling it out because before that I worked like double timer like in 2017.
Did that
But
last part, like of your time there, almost make you want to stay or like reconsider staying if they
um,
kept doing that? I don't know, like they gave
if
you
it
this
was
job.
so relaxed, for sure.
Yeah.
Because the funny thing is, I was working so little, but actually my boss at the time was actually a new boss. He was so happy with me. He said like amazing work and so on, and I got an amazing appraisal letter when I left. So It was really funny. So actually, even told my boss, like I can achieve more in 2 days than other guys work in 5 days here in this company. I don't think I was mistaken, but because I came to the office at 9:30 and others came there at 6:30, and I left at 4:30, and so my boss said, "Okay, can you please agree that you're here at 9 o'clock? I don't care when you come, but
But that's
did it."
weird. Like you had like already given your notice, but they gave you this better job and you started liking it better.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would
You
have,
basically extend your leaving day.
yeah, I really would have started questioning like, is it really worth giving up everything? But of course it was, right? I'd love to hear what happened next.
Yeah, yeah. So could I have stayed there for sure? But somewhere deep down my heart, I knew I wanted to pursue like the entrepreneurial digital nomad career. Didn't know how yet, but actually then I met a guy in a crypto meetup somewhere in Zurich in March, right in the month when I was supposed to leave actually, that corporate job, and then we started working together on crypto projects, and then soon after, I think some months later, we found two more guys and we wanted to actually start a crypto startup in Zurich. And actually, so I was directly hired at that company in 2018 in January. So I was still employed actually after I left my corporate job eventually in 2018 in December. 2019 January, I was hired by this new company. So in the end, unfortunately, it was never my own startup. We actually implemented our idea into an existing company where one of the guys was already employed. The whole thing was super exciting. We were actually planning to build like a supercomputer with IBM that could do like AI kind of things and all kind of other cool things. But in the end, the whole project started, but then collapsed. I think maybe also luckily because then I gained even more freedom. Of course, in the time at the startup, it was like 1.5 years. I already gained a lot more freedom than I had in my corporate job. I could work at home office and so on. I was traveling a lot for work. We're trying to find investors in Dubai. That's a whole other story. Emphasis is on trying. Anyway, so in the end, actually, we got financing. We acquired over 2 million Swiss francs. But in the end, for the development of this machine, we would have needed a lot more. So let's say like more in the area of like 8 to 12 million Swiss francs. So in the end,
I
the
see.
financing never came. COVID came, and the whole thing fell apart. I left, and I was unemployed.
I was going to ask you because I'm like, it sounds like you never had a chance to enjoy what freedom was yet because you just stepped right into like, you're flying around the world trying to negotiate some deals. So
Yeah,
how was it when you finally found your freedom?
yeah. So basically, after I left the startups, it was actually 2020, so right during COVID, and um, and basically, I always thought, okay, like being unemployed is such a stigmatized thing, like you don't have a job and what do my parents say or does my environment say and so on. But the funny thing is there were more friends actually at the time doing the same thing. Another friend from mine from the corporate world where I was working at also was burned out. He also became unemployed. And then also a girl from Nomad Cruise actually also became unemployed at the same time, like me. And actually with her, actually, I started my next company. And with her, I'm also working now on my next project. So you see, it's kind of funny, like sometimes these times off actually offer new opportunities. And I think 2020, when I was unemployed, actually my unemployment started in November officially. Um, that was the first time where I really had time to think what I want to do with my life.
Yeah, because
And
it sounds like you were always on this track. Like your family, like you said, had these like high educational backgrounds and they expected a lot from you. By
yeah.
the way, quick segue. What was your family thinking about all of this? Because I don't know how, what the expectations were like from them.
You mean of me being burned out or my transition to being nomad or everything?
Everything like just stepping
Everything.
away from the corporate life and like,
Yeah,
having this.
they were very confused in the beginning. When I left my corporate job and went to this kind of startup, but they also didn't understand. I mean, for my parents, I mean, of course, I love them, but sometimes they don't necessarily find my plans, let's say, the best plans or like suitable for me. So we have different opinions on what to do with my life. So basically, of course, in their opinion, it will always be best if you're like in a stable corporate job until you retire. Like that's what my father, I mean, he's like the first generation after the Second World War. He was born in 1949. And for him, of course, like security was like the most important thing, So he was a teacher, so employed by the government, so he could never get laid off. Of course, he was actually really, really good teacher, even right, and very ambitious. In the end, he never really got, I'd say, fully rewarded for all the stuff that he put into the system. He was like coding software and so on. He was actually thinking very entrepreneurial, but unfortunately never rewarded financially for this. Anyway, so he left his job, and I think both my parents, they value security and safety and stability a lot. So of course, for them, it would be ideal if they could say like a Christian is like working at a managerial position in Switzerland as corporate job and so on. And yeah, ABB is like such a great company, like 120,000 employees, and like have factories all over the world and making like robots and cool stuff for power plants and new solutions for building automation and so on. So for them, of course, it is also a little bit prestige, especially for my father, to basically, I don't know how you say it in English, but in German, you say you walk from door to door and you tell them what your kids are doing. You're bragging about your kids' efforts, and achievements. And for instance, my brother's a doctor, also really prestigious, right? And my other brother is like working at an IT institute, but also now pursuing his own dreams of being a DJ and producer. But for my father, of course, it was a great feeling, I guess, to tell to his peers, like the headmaster was his best buddy, to say like, yeah, of course, Kristiaan is like working there. And so of course, they were very, very confused once I dropped the bullet and said I was unemployed. And said, what the fuck are you doing? Like you have this double degree master from the most prestigious business schools in Europe, and now you're unemployed. What the fuck? And then we had a lot of discussions for many different reasons and topics. Among them, of course, were also COVID, very different opinions, then nutrition as well, actually, then my job. Yeah, so very, very many friction points, I would say. And this whole thing basically came to a big conflict last year, say, that actually was resolved in July.
Oh,
So
wow.
where I remember we were like having dinner somewhere at my family's house in Germany, or like somewhere close to there. And then in the night, we came back at 11 o'clock, and somehow my father was opening up this groundbreaking discussion about who I am, what my purpose in life is, and so on, what I want to do with my life, and then we were discussing for 2.5 hours in the middle of the night.
Wow. What conclusions did you guys come to? Did he finally see
Yeah,
it?
so the first, like my father asked me, so when does this traveling finally stop? Like I was already like being nomad at the time. And I said, the traveling just begun. And he said like, so what's your plan for your life? And I said, well, first of all, life is for living. And then my mother started crying, and it's a crazy situation actually, because basically in their opinion, I didn't have my life under control. Although I know that I have my life very much under control, just like not in this realm of being in a corporate path anymore. So I'm creating my own reality now. And this is actually what I wanted for a very long time, but it took me quite some years actually to be where I am now. So actually this discussion in the end lasted until I think 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I told my father, before we continue discussing, just listen to this podcast. Actually, there was a German girl that I know from like a mastermind group in Berlin, and she interviewed me last year. And actually, I told my father, listen to the interview, and then we continue talking. And it was kind of cool. So I was like talking to like to you, and I was like putting down my plan, what I wanted to outline my plan, what I wanted to do with my life, my plans were. And then actually my father listened to the episode, actually to my surprise. And in the morning he came into my room and said, Kristiaan, I have to apologize to you. I actually listened to this podcast interview and it was really interesting. And also like how the interviewer asked the questions. What a great girl. It's okay. Yeah, sure. She's really cool. And now I understand you much better, what you want to do with your life. And so that was already the first point where we made up a little bit, right? And then actually I think a month later, there was like family reunion again. I came there one day early and I told my parents what I was doing. And actually they were very interested in like video editing and audio editing and online marketing, how to place Facebook ads. And so actually they were really interested in what I was doing. Just like what I do now is so far away from what I did in my corporate job before. We can talk about that later. What I want to tell you is that I think a month later, the funniest thing actually happened. So for my father, he's, let's say, rather conservative, very traditional. So his world basically evolves around the daily newspaper and the daily TV show at 8 o'clock in Germany, yeah, Tagesschau. So whenever something is mentioned there, it exists in this reality. When something is not mentioned there, it doesn't exist in this reality. And normally they don't talk about digital nomads, right? But the biggest newspaper in Germany published an article on the Sunday edition, which is like the biggest edition of the week. And then actually he sent me an article and said like, oh, this German couple, Nina and blah, 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 Schwichtenberg, they had their own clothing brand in Germany. And they basically wound up the entire operations because they were burned out in their thing, and they actually went to Bali. And now they're influencers or something, doing their thing in Bali and being nomads or whatever. And then he said, actually, okay, now I fully understand why you were so unhappy in your corporate job at the time, and I also know now what this nomad stuff means and so on. And those are really the coronation, so as being accepted, so to say. And of course, I want to be loved and accepted by my parents. Of course, I seek the how do you say that? The affirmation, that they are fine with what I'm doing, I guess. Although of course I can say, fuck it, I do what I want, when I want, what I usually do. But of course, I don't want to burn any bridges with my parents either, So actually that my parents came around to actually understanding what I'm doing, that actually means quite a lot to me, yeah.
I never imagined it got that dramatic with your parents when I mean that's like what a lot of people probably imagine as one of their biggest fears when they're trying to like, do something very different from what their parents expect. But I'm really glad
Yeah.
it turned the way it did. Turns out you just needed to be in the newspaper. In your
I
father.
wasn't a newspaper yet. But some other nomads, yeah, it was super funny, yeah.
So
Super, super
I
funny.
have a question for you. Do you
Yeah.
think the training in the corporate world, would you recommend that to people as like at least something they do for 6 months to a year at the very beginning before they start being a nomad or doing things online or being an entrepreneur? Do you think that in the end that training helped you or prepared you in any way for your future? Or would you say, no, no, just go straight for it?
It's really hard to say, So I always thought, so when I heard for the first time about like being an entrepreneur, doing something online, e-commerce, whatever, I really thought, okay, if I would relive my life and choose again after high school, I would probably not study because everybody wanted to study at the time. I would probably just like be with 18, 19, just like start an online business, do something with dropshipping or Amazon FBA, and that's it. In the end, I can't compare, because I actually went through the whole system. So I had 13 years of schooling plus 6 years of tertiary, so college education. So I really don't really know what I would have missed. And in the end, quoting Steve Jobs here, connecting the dots, you never know what it was good for in the end, right? You can only in hindsight, looking back, you can actually connect the dots and see actually what things actually contributed to your success or your path today. And certainly, I would say that I learned a shitload. I learned so much. Studying, of course, like interpersonal skills, but also like, I guess, technical skills. And if I really, really learned something, that's like how to work under pressure. So in my business school, my undergrad was like this elite business school in Germany, private business school. It was very, very intense. So we had like, I think 25 or 20 exams in like, I think 3 weeks or something. So something insane. So I really learned how to work under pressure. Then in the corporate world, I certainly also learned a lot for sure. Yeah. I mean, especially on these strategic projects. So we work with the guys from McKinsey, like coming full circle to McKinsey, right? I worked alongside with those guys on the project. So I learned a lot from them as well, how to structure projects and so on, how to tweak Excel and PowerPoint and so on. But honestly, I don't think it is necessary to go through the whole system. I think now, especially nowadays, you can learn everything online. I mean, look at our community, Nomad Cruise, right? If you want to learn anything like how to do AI, how to do affiliate marketing, how to set up a funnel or whatever, right? You can learn everything from the people that are on in this community that give talks, do like workshops, meetups, and conferences and so on. So I think the knowledge is out there today. It's much more accessible than at the time when I was 19 in high school. It was internet was already starting to be a thing, but it was not as big as it is today. And nowadays everything is online. So I would really say the knowledge is there. You just need to make the effort to actually get the connections, put yourself out there, and get going.
Yeah, I
So
would say it is like very person. It's like, very case by case. Like I did the corporate life for 4 years, so I burned
mhm.
out. I know exactly what you're talking about with
Oh
the
wow.
escape. But I think without that experience, I wouldn't have known or appreciated so much like the other side. Like, oh, I know what I left and how much of a slave like feeling it can be. But if you don't have that, if you're just like already an entrepreneur, or maybe you don't have a lot of self-discipline,
Yeah.
go having to go into an office, like punching your card, whatever, every day. It does like it helps you have some of that discipline, but then also appreciate what you escape from later.
One more thought that I just came along into my head. So everybody always says about like think outside of the box, right? But then actually one guy some years ago told me, before like actually knowing or like thinking outside of the box, you have to define the fucking box. What is it? What actually is the box? So I
Right.
guess
You have to experience the box.
if you are spending some time in corporate or in a job for that matter, I guess it contributes quite a lot to actually knowing what the box is, And if you know like what a traditional lifestyle is, that is expected of society and of parents and of the government, you should always have one job, you live in one country, you have everything in this own country, bank account and so on, companies. You never leave the borders, only for vacation. Um, if you know the system, that I would say is the box. And once you understand this box, you can step outside of the box, and then go beyond and do what we do now, huh?
Yeah. So speaking of that, now you've been doing this, what, like 6 years since 2018, you
No,
said?
that would be a nice story, right? But no, in the end, I joined Nomad Cruise for the first time 2018. That's correct. So I heard about
Yeah.
Nomads, I would say in 2017. I was at a co-working space for 4 weeks, but it was actually my time off, vacation. So I joined Nomad Cruise in 2018. I was 2 weeks in Brazil afterwards, but I was still in corporate, right? Actually, that was like I think I had 10 days left after
Okay.
my first Nomad Cruise. Then I was at a startup. So, but I would really say my Nomad lifestyle kicked off in 2022. So now I would say 3 years. I'm a nomad. I would say, yeah.
Okay. And how has your digital nomad life changed now since you started? And do you ever plan on slowing down or settling down in one place and then traveling from there?
Well, I still do have a home base, huh? So it's a home base in Switzerland, Zurich. So I'm not a full-time nomad yet. So I still spend some months there, but I'm definitely traveling quite a bit per year. And do I plan on slowing down? No, actually, I'm not. I'm actually planning on accelerating or like doing even more. I mean, look at this now. For the past 4 weeks, I've been in 4 countries.
Yeah, we really
So
were excited to capture you in a paradise-like setting. Can you tell everybody where you are now?
yes, I am in the Philippines in Siargao, dubbed the new Bali.
And how is it? Would you recommend Siargao to digital nomads?
Yeah, absolutely. Siargao is a really cool place. It's very beautiful, a lot of palm trees. It's especially good for surfers. So if you're a surfer, apparently you have some of the best waves here. I only did one day. They offered us like a free class in our. Actually, it was like a normal conference called Nomads in Paradise, and they offered us like a free surfing class. I'm not so big on surfing that would go every day, but some people actually go every day. Um, yeah, and I guess Siargao is very comparable to Bali, just like a lot smaller.
And what's interesting is I hear so much about the terrible internet connection in the Philippines, and you're on like a smaller island, like not, near
Yeah,
Manila. This internet connection is fine.
yeah, it's Elon's thing, huh? I'm on Starlink.
Wow. Same we had on Nomad Cruise. Yeah, like it's just
Yeah, many places have
people's
Starlink nowadays.
perceptions, right, of like what they can or can't do in different places. It's
Yeah,
interesting. Like things are improving all the time with being able to work from your laptop anywhere.
yeah, absolutely. I would say internet actually is not a big issue here. It works very, very well.
It's good to get that
Yeah,
confirmation.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
when you said you want to accelerate in the future, your nomad life, are you going to give up your base? Because that's what I think is like, okay, I'll be a full-time nomad, really just from my suitcase.
I'm not sure if I want to give up my base yet. So also my angle is to become Swiss. So I'm there now almost for 10 years. So once I get the passport, let's see if I actually move my home base. But Switzerland is an amazing country, right? That's why I want to have the opportunity to always go back there because it's just like a much, much, much better version of Germany, where I'm from. No disrespect to Germany, but just like Switzerland is just like a safe haven and it's always stability and they don't do anything sudden, rushed, like I don't know. So usually when you're in Switzerland, things are stable and you can plan much better, I would say. So I left Germany in 2015 just for this job at the time, but I did not know actually that it was a really, really smart move to do. So this is
Yeah.
no advice, no tax advice or anything, but Germany is a tax hell, so nobody wants to live in Germany if you are actually investing or paying taxes of whatever kind. So I would say Switzerland treats its people a lot better than Germany. And also being a nomad or applying the flag theory means like go there where you're treated best. And I, for myself, chose Switzerland over Germany. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and your question, accelerating my thing. Yeah. So, I could imagine not having home base anymore, but that would only happen if I get the Swiss passport first and then have the opportunity to come back.
yeah, I just did an interview with Sanjay Paul. Shout out to Sanjay.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah, of course.
talking about this, like as nomads, it is, we thought, still nice and important to have a base or at least ties to a country. Like, do not become stateless. Just traveling around can have a lot of challenges that come with it. So yeah, I think it's a good plan, but it's also interesting. People think, oh, like your father, like I don't know what you're doing with your life. What is your future? But you're like, you still have this stable side that you can come back to, and that is your plan. So I think he'd appreciate this part of the interview.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh yeah, I think my parents got it now that I'm not going back to corporate, but my mother still asked me, I think some months ago, when I had the family reunion, so I go back to my parents' place maybe two to three times a year, and my mother, I think she asked me like somewhere casually, so Christian, are you going back to corporate? When are you going back to corporate? And but also you're getting older now, right? So do they still want you? And
Oh, wow.
so I do think that my mother subconsciously still believes what I'm doing right now is just like a temporary thing. And he will go back to come to his senses, and do like the corporate thing again. But I mean, I could, right? Like, I mean, let's say I go broke, I'm indebted or whatever. I guess I would rebuild my life in a corporate job with a six-figure income, of course. But I don't think that's happening anytime soon, hopefully. But just in case, like the fallback solution, of course, is having a corporate job again. But that would not be my ideal plan. My ideal plan is that I'm this awesome digital nomad entrepreneur doing one thing and being very successful.
Actually, interestingly enough, I think it's becoming harder for corporate jobs to recruit people. So, like, they might be more willing to open their doors to you because people would
Yeah,
prefer being nomadic or having that benefit. So, yeah, it's kind of becoming this ironic thing.
of course. I mean, there's also a lot of people that can work remotely. Unfortunately, I work in procurement. So many companies actually told me, actually, I thought about it for a long time at the time, having a remote job in my old field.
Hmm.
But then the company said, yeah, might work in theory, but you have to be on site, you have to see the production, you have to visit the suppliers and so on. So it didn't really work. So at the time, even I thought maybe I should become a coder. So basically, I can really work full time from anywhere. But in the end, I really had to do my own thing, and that means like that meant like cutting ties with my old world and starting up from scratch, basically. Which
Yeah,
was a very
well,
scary moment, right? But in the end, I'm proud that I did it.
yeah, I'm proud of you for doing it too. It sounds like there were a lot of ups and downs. Well, Christian, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else you would like to share with us before we go, including where people can follow you?
Absolutely. So first of all, I would say to anybody out there who's listening to the interview now and thinking of becoming a nomad, just do it, and you can always come back. If it doesn't work out, if it's not what you thought it would be, or didn't meet your expectations, you can always return to being a corporate slave somewhere in your home country.
It's
But
always an office
yeah,
where they kick you
I can.
in.
Yes, actually, I can tell you another anecdote that I had. Like, I think actually it was last year in January. So I wasn't very traveling as normal the year before, but on and off. And 2023 in January actually was like the tipping point where I really thought, okay, either I go back to corporate job or I try this normal thing out and see if it works out. And because I thought to myself at the time I was 34, okay, if you don't do this now and you wait 20 years and you're 54 and look back at your life and then you think maybe I should have done it 20 years ago. And so I thought, okay, I just do this now and I take the risk. I I forego my six-figure income in a corporate job and I just try this lifestyle out. And in the end, if you're 54 now and listening to this, it's still not too late, because the best day was like 30 years ago to start, but the second best day is today. So just start.
Thank you for that. Yes, thank you for that reminder to anybody who's listening. It's today is always an option. So if
Absolutely.
people want to follow you, Kristiaan, on this
Yeah.
journey,
Where can you follow me? You can just follow me on Instagram, for instance, or LinkedIn. So my name, Kristiaan Hilger, is on LinkedIn or also in Instagram without the space in between. Yeah, my website is called Macadamia Productions. That's my brand. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
yeah, we'll
Reach
put
out
all
if you have
the
any questions about Nomad Lifestyle. I'm happy to answer them.
yeah. Thank you so much. We'll put all those links in the description. And Kristiaan, thank you again for joining us today. It was really interesting to hear your story.
My pleasure, Becky.
Have a great day. Have a great evening, I suppose
Thank
there,
you.
Jeff.
You too.
Bye.